I want to thank you. This is about our coaching for 2014 starting in January. And it's some exciting news. We've got some of the things that we've really had to update because of the Dodd-Frank and the SAFE Act. So let's go through what you learn one-on-one coaching, and we'll go through our guarantee, but I want to go through our syllabus, which will basically you'll learn within 12 months. Okay, and we really want you to have a viable business. We don't want you to just learn a few tricks and then go, well, what do I do from here? All right, let's get started. We got to get involved with how can we work without banks? How can we work without money? How can we work without credit? How can we get our own first home without credit or money? And I've had several successful students that have had really hard time with a bankruptcy in the past or foreclosure, and they've built a real estate investing company. Okay. Then we have to learn a little bit about your exit strategies and choosing the right strategies. Are you going to rent it, or are you going to cash out, or are you going to sell it on terms with the new Dodd-Frank law? What's wholesaling? How do you get wholesaling started? And is wholesaling right for my area? Sometimes wholesaling isn't right for your area, and you have to do an investigation whether or not there's enough cash buyers in your particular area. Do you want to do virtual wholesaling, which is out of state? So that's, you know, the kind of thing on wholesaling. It's just flipping, but you got to make sure that it's worth your time, because a lot of wholesalers don't make very much money. They throw a lot of money at marketing and they don't get a lot of sales. Rehabbing, retailing. How do you rehab? We've got wonderful forms as far as rehabbing, wonderful contracts as far as helping you negotiate with builders. Okay? And it's very, very important that you're careful about rehabbing if you have no construction experience. Then we get into seller financing, which is my favorite. We go through how do we get the deed with subject to. We go through lease options with the new Dodd-Frank Act. We go through wraparound mortgages, and we go through private first mortgages on free and clear houses. And this is all without banks. We go through and dissect subject to existing financing. Subject to existing financing is going to be one of the best ways to be able to make money in this Dodd-Frank environment. And then we go through basically how to get the contracts done and then how to close at escrow. Then we get involved with second mortgages, wraparound mortgages, and how can we use that in the Dodd-Frank Act. And then contracts for deed, depending on the state that you're in. It's very, very important that you do a good job buying on contract for deed. You don't want to sell on contract for deed, but you do want to buy on contract for deed. Now, lease options, lease with options, there's been some changes this year because the Dodd-Frank Act, you've got to do it right. It's very, very important that you watch out for rent credits, and you have a separate option and a separate lease, and they're not related to each other. Okay, you're not financing property with a lease option. And then we've got about 5 different ways to use a lease with an option, and in certain states where it's very difficult to evict a lease option tenant, if they have an option to purchase agreement, we have a special contract for option to purchase, which they don't get the option yet. So that's a very, very important way to be able to protect yourself if you have to get rid of a tenant buyer that doesn't pay you. Okay. We get involved with sandwich lease options. We got something new this year where in sandwiches, if the tenant doesn't pay you, you don't have to pay the seller. It's not the easiest negotiation in the world, but we teach you how to do that, and some sellers will and some sellers won't. Okay. How do you lease option a house with repairs that need some work, and somebody does the work and has an option to buy it at a certain price? And that way you don't have to do the work. And that's a way to avoid rehabs. Okay. Standard options, just putting an option to purchase on a house. One of my favorite ways to do joint ventures is using a standard option. And I work with a doctor, and I say, doctor, what we want to do is basically use your money and use your credit and my time. And I'm going to go out and project manage the whole thing for you. And then I'm not going to make any money until we resell the property after it's been worked on. So they buy the house, they rehab the house with their money, And then I have an option to buy 1/2 of the net profit when they resell the house, and that's in escrow instructions. It's a fantastic way to do joint ventures. Getting rentals, doing multifamily. We've got a subsidiary that we go out and you learn about multifamilies and how can you buy that property with as little as 3 to 5% down. Okay, so getting your ducks in a row and building your company is very, very important. Learning the system. You want to be able to set goals. You want to be able to take action. Okay. How do you get organized? What do you need? What software do you need? How do you get your websites up? Tools of the trade, things of that nature. Okay. Then we go through finance, and it's so important to have a really good understanding of not just finance, but money and how does it work. Okay. What is creative financing? How does it work? What's a short sale? How does that work? Strategies. How can you make money on 100% financed properties? What strategies can you get money back at closing? And then how do you repair credit ratings? Very, very important to understand the Fair Credit Reporting Act and what your rights are. Now, we're very impressed with the level of our contracts. Our contracts go through the following techniques, and each technique has got about maybe 5 to 8 different agreements or forms. The first one is purchase and sale agreements, then wholesaling agreements, then rehabbing agreements, then seller financing agreements, which include subject to, agreement for deed, lease options, straight options, so forth. And then landlording agreements for the tenant, for eviction, things of that nature. Short sale agreements, how do you build a short sale package to send to the bank? Land trust agreements, how do you sell the beneficial interest of a property and keep it private? And then partnership agreements with JV partners and private lenders. So the important thing is that you be able to build all your agreements together. Our next section is contacts. How do you build a contact team? You need business contacts, and you need money contacts, and you need investor contacts. And then lastly, because we don't want to do the cart before the horse, once you get all of this learned, it generally takes only a short time, usually a couple of weeks, then you get into the marketing. You got to learn your local market. You got to find the deals. You got to pre-qualify the sellers over the phone. You got to view the property. And you got to make notations of any rehab work that needs to be done. You need to estimate repairs. You need to estimate the property's value with comps and calculate the deal and submit the offer. Then you got to execute the exit strategy. So that's our training in a nutshell. What's really exciting to me is that there's 20 million properties, 20 million houses that have no equity, or they're a little bit underwater. A lot of houses are not that much underwater compared to 12 months ago. But there's 20 million houses that have less than 5% equity. And we use subject to solve that problem. We use lease options to solve that problem. We use master leases to solve that problem. And there's, it's just so exciting to be able to help a seller that can't fix their problem because they have no equity. They can't sell with an agent. Okay. All right. So if you want our training, let me tell you how that works. But first of all, I want to talk to you a little bit about our guarantee. We work with you for a year. Now, I've taught high school, I've taught college. I'm a very, very good teacher. But it's important that if you don't have much time, that you focus on the right things. We teach you the finance strategies first, then we teach you the negotiations second. And then only until we feel that we've got the word patterns down with the seller do we go talk to sellers. We don't want to talk to sellers until we have the training done. Once you can talk to sellers, then you're going to open the sale up, and if you have a hard time closing the sale, you call me. That's the power of one-on-one mentoring. If you're a little scared to talk to sellers, we do role-playing until you're ready. I deal with shy people. I deal with people that have some difficulty at times, and I'm very, very patient. So we average one-on-one about 2 hours a week, and with homework assignments, and you might spend another 2 hours a week. And so if you've got babies at home, or you work from home and you're trying to fit this training in, so it might take a couple of weeks to get the basic training down. But it's all on video, and you can stay up to 18 straight hours if you want to learn it. But the key here is learning the word patterns to sellers. If you get that down, then you learn the contracts, then we start getting some marketing. Now, a lot of people say, well, I don't have a lot of money for marketing. Well, there's a lot of things we can do on Craigslist and other websites until you start getting some deals, and then you put a portion of your profit into your marketing. Okay. Now, our guarantee is very, very simple. If after 12 months you do exactly as agreed, I do the coaching, you implement the coaching, you talk to the sellers, if you have trouble you call me, and I call the seller and try to save the deal, whatever it is, if for some reason at the end of those 12 months you have not doubled your money in what you pay me for training, you get those funds back. But you have to do the work. Now, if something comes up in your life and you can't do this on a reliable basis, then we'll just extend the coaching, because we're going to split the first 10 deals. We make money with an upfront annual fee, which is guaranteed on a conditional guarantee, and we make money by splitting the first 10 deals. Now, let's talk about how can you work backwards from a goal. Setting goals is very important. Let's say that you want to set a goal to gross $100,000. And let's say that in your market, the average 3% down payment for a house is, let's say it's a $200,000 house median market. So that's $6,000. Let's just round it to $5,000. So let's say your average option payment on a lease option assignment, which is the easiest way to get started, the average amount of money that you're going to make per house is $5,000. Well, you divide the 5 into the 100, and that's 20 houses. Okay? And if you wanted to make $100,000 and you split the first 10 with me, you're going to have to bump that up to about 30 houses. So that might be 2 or 3 houses a month at $5,000 a pop. And that's entirely doable, because there's 20 million of these houses that have no equity. We're going to either buy it on subject to, or we're going to lease option assignment the house. And then our exit strategy is going to be either a rental, or just rent it out for income, or we're going to lease option and assign and get our fee and get out. Now, you can do sandwiches, you can resell it for cash, you can do all sorts of things, but it really depends on the deal. So I like to give the seller 2 or 3 offers. And that increases our closing ratio. If you give them just 1, they go, well, I don't want to do that. But if you give them 2 or 3, they'll do 1 of them. Does that make sense to do it that way? I think it makes sense. Okay. So, to get started, it costs $5,000 for the whole year, and that averages about $100 a week. Okay, and that just pays for our expenses. It's not a huge amount of money. If you go to get a franchise, you probably spend $50,000 or $100,000 for that franchise. We charge you that fee. If you go to other companies that are out there, I've had some students that have spent over $30,000 on training, and they haven't done any deals whatsoever. My incentive is to split deals with you. So in order for you to do well, there's an incentive for me to work with you. So that's our explanation about how our coaching works with the conditional guarantee, and that's in writing. But if you do your part, there's no way you can't recoup these fees. There's just no way. You just got to ask yourself, do I want to be self-employed? Do I want to go out and make $100,000 the first year and then maybe hire some people to increase your income and help grow your business? I highly recommend you read the E-Myth, The E-Myth is a very strong book as far as growing your business. I also recommend that you read Tony Robbins' Awaken the Giant Within. That will get your mind right in order to be able to go out and get everything that you possibly can in 2014. Right now, credit is going to get tighter. Real estate investors, they can really help sellers that need to sell and they can't get a buyer through their house for whatever reason. So thank you so much for listening. Hope you've enjoyed the syllabus. And we look forward to training you and getting you into your first deal within 30 to 60 days. So thanks again for listening. Bye-bye.